Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how you doing this evening, this Friday evening?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a longer week. Been really busy with a lot of other projects. Hopefully, other things coming up here in the future. So, just establishing myself here in the Twin Cities still, and it's been going good. And it's been really nice that the weather is improving.
Yeah?
I'm glad to see that it's not raining or anything like that. It did a little bit, I guess, yesterday, but not too bad. And I'm just looking forward to being able to get out and actually accomplish some things in the yard and do all that fun stuff. So
Yeah, getting after in the yard.
homeowner stuff, yeah.
Right
How
on. Exciting
about you?
stuff. But it is an exciting time of year.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I am feeling good. I had, let's call it a deadline today, and I passed a big deadline. So, like, I've been kind of that's part of why the podcast is late this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate everyone, but really we're getting it to you for your weekend / early next week, depending on when you check your pods.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm feeling good. And yeah, the weather is improving a little bit. I've got a trip coming up. I've got to go to a wedding out of town next weekend.
Gotcha.
But it should be good weather for that, I think, too. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to doing some fun stuff and trying not to get muddy, because that's what I do in the spring. I try to not get muddy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't want it to rain
It's a constant
anymore.
struggle.
Yeah, I want it to just stay dry for a little bit. I know that's a tough ask this time of year around here, but like it makes it so much easier to get yard work done when I'm not trying to also, I'm not like wiping mud and stuff off of my hands every 2 seconds and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, dude.
it's good, man. I think it's tough also this time of year, especially in the college football world, because there's not a lot going on. And even when stuff does happen, it's really not that big of a deal, but things are blown so out of proportion because people are so desperate to hear about things. Like the whole thing with Tennessee and this Nico quarterback.
Iamaleava.
Yeah, like that. I mean, I get it's a thing, but like, I don't know, man. Didn't we all see this coming? Like, is this a surprise to anybody?
I don't know, man. I don't know if everybody saw players holding out for more money.
Yeah.
Especially players who haven't lived up to expectations. He wants to essentially double he's already in the 7 figures, wants to double his money. He didn't play like a 7-figure quarterback last year.
Yeah. True,
so like if I were Tennessee, I wouldn't blink. I wouldn't even think about it. And if like he really wants to go, well, I guess you're going with somebody in the spring portal then.
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I've seen, the projection, or this is just, I don't know if there's anything official, but like the rumors are Ohio State and Oregon and then Colorado, I think are like the top 3 targets.
There's no way that Ohio State or Oregon is taking that as a culture risk. That is, I bet you anything that's his camp putting it out and not those schools.
Yeah.
Because Oregon has Dante Moore and Ohio State has its pick of any of the 5 stars and 4-star, high 4 stars on its roster right now, between 5-star Julian Sayin and high 4-star Lincoln Kienholz. And apparently they both look really good.
Yeah, I've heard that. No, I feel like he would fit really well culturally, obviously, in Colorado with Deion. So,
Deion. Maybe he's already got a senior quarterback transfer. Caden Salter from Liberty.
All right. Well.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, I think Nico screwed himself over here. I think he's going to end up with nothing. Yeah. I think he's going to end up walking away to Tennessee for a fraction because he's a locker room risk at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So he's made himself. And again, this is a guy who has a distorted view of reality. Like, what does he think he accomplished last year? They didn't have a great season and they were a defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, you can't be like, I want there to be collective bargaining agreements and like multi-year contracts and all that kind of stuff, because I think that would avoid a lot of stuff like this. Mm-hmm. But he's living in a fantasy world, man.
Yeah.
He's living in a fantasy world because nobody would look at what he did last year and think he's worth any more money than he's already making.
Yeah.
A lot of people would think he's worth less.
Well, you're going to see this, when this, with like the new world of NIL and all this kind of stuff is going on, that you're going to see players like this screw themselves and shoot themselves in the foot because of greed, and hubris.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, maybe it'll turn out for him somehow, but like you said, like this could turn out to be a death sentence in some ways for him, which is not good. So,
and it's not like, look, it's Tennessee. Like, you can't tell me they don't have other guys in the roster that they don't like.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think he's out of his mind. Like, holding out, trying to ask for double his money. You kidding me? Did you win the Heisman last year, or did you go? What did Tennessee even go last year? I feel like it wasn't that good.
I mean, they were in the CFP, but
no.
Sure. Oh,
all right. Tennessee was, but what did they go ultimately? Okay, I guess they were 10-3. So yeah, I guess they were still 10-2.
Yeah,
which is very good. But like, he wasn't the catalyst. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
it wasn't like good for them. 10-3. It's very good season.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like he was balling out and carrying.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Cam Ward at Miami, man. It wasn't, or Shedeur at Colorado. It wasn't that at all.
Yeah. True. Well, speaking of quarterbacks, just to I don't know if you saw this, but it happened very recently, probably within the last hour. But there was an announcement on Twitter that Brendan Sullivan is transferring out of Iowa.
Our old pal.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? I mean,
I think that Mark Gronowski better get healthy. Because, like, we went through this with Cade McNamara, where he was supposed to be healthy in the spring, and then he wasn't. And they're like, oh, he'll be back for fall camp. And then he wasn't right away. And then he got back and got hurt again. And then he was out for the year.
Yep.
So, like, maybe this is a good commentary on his health. Maybe he looked at him and is like, oh, Gronowski looks like he's ready to go. I should get out of Iowa. Maybe that it could be that. But I don't like, and I guess they like Stratton, the guy behind him. So maybe it's not a big deal. But I wonder at this time of year, where does a Brendan Sullivan land? Like, it's got to be a group of 5 school.
I was just going to say that it has to be a G5 school at this point, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. He's not good enough, in my opinion, to be playing at a Power 5 school.
Not to be handed the keys, and I'm sure he wants the keys.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably an okay backup, but he's not a starting quarterback at least not a Big Ten school. So
no.
But
honestly, his skill set might translate better to, like, I don't not to be a jerk, but like FCS.
Yeah.
He could be nasty FCS quarterback.
Absolutely.
Reminds me of the Montana State quarterback from last year, dude.
Yeah.
Who ran like a 4.37 and jumped vertical 41 inches at his pro day.
Dang.
They're like trying to figure out if he can play any other positions.
Yeah.
Other than being a gadget quarterback. Yeah. He's superhuman.
Dang.
So those guys exist.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. We'll track that for sure.
Yeah, I just saw that happen recently. But yeah, hopefully, and we'll see if Iowa has the depth. If Gronowski continues to have an issue, or if it just like you said with Cade McNamara, like hopefully it's not he doesn't continue to re-injure himself in the same way. So
no,
it'll be interesting. So yeah, well, that's college football. That's life. So yeah, well, I think that's all we have. Oh, nope, you have one more thing you wanted to talk about.
Oh, John, we had a little bit of I'm not going to say a kerfuffle, but like in a press conference, Curt Cignetti got real. Indiana head coach, our old friend, Curt Cignetti, he got real. And I think you kind of just need to hear the words. So I'm going to tell you, I don't think you've seen this. So I'm going to tell you what he said.
Okay.
I didn't say absolutely everything, but everything I'm going to say he said, I just cut out some of the filler in the middle. Curt Cignetti, quote, I think today we squandered an opportunity to improve as much as possible. We were inconsistent in too many areas. Probably not mentally prepared to have a successful practice. Just too much inconsistency across the board at all positions, whether it's a lack of detail, focus, preparation, which leads to a breakdown in execution. Great players, you can't coach them enough. Inconsistent players want to be coached on their own terms. And today, we didn't come out prepared to improve and live up to the standard. My focus is on what we were today, not 4 months from now.
Bro. Dang. Whoa. Like, okay. Ouch.
Oh, man. He read him the riot act, man.
It reminds me of when Brett Bielema, wasn't it his first year when he was talking about his offensive lineman, about he was like, we'll go find someone else. Like, basically, we'll go find someone else if you can't do the job. Like, to the public,
Yeah.
He said that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, okay. But this was about the whole team.
Dang, dude.
And he said we were inconsistent across all positions. Like, that's a call out, man. Here's the thing. I see, so I've been to a lot of Gopher practices. PJ, at the last practice I was at, was saying stuff like that to his players. He stopped practice because third stringers who are never going to see the field, at least if they are, not for a long time from now, maybe for a year or two, right? Some of them not at all. Because he said they weren't prepared to break the huddle. They broke the huddle wrong, according to PJ. And he's like, it wasn't, and he said it didn't meet the standard, right? But the difference is, that's B, that's B, everybody. B the dog. The difference, though, is that PJ would never, ever say that publicly.
No, he wouldn't.
Ever.
No.
Not in a million years. He's Mr. It's my fault. And Cignetti, dude, I was thinking about it. I was like, who does Curt Cignetti remind me of as a coach? Because, he's been around as a head coach for a long time, but he's only been a major college head coach for, this is his second year. Yeah. So we're still getting to know him in some ways. And he reminds me a little bit, man. I was thinking about it. Steve Spurrier, former Florida and South Carolina head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, Spurrier, he would come out after games when they lost. And he'd be like, we had a great game plan today. We put the guys in position to win. And I don't know. They just didn't execute. I don't know what to tell you. Guys just didn't get the job done today. It's
not
just
his
basically
fault.
Not my fault. Not my fault. This game, no, I coached well enough to win this game. This was on my guys.
Threw the whole team under the bus.
Yeah. But he could do it because he was Steve Spurrier.
Yeah.
And he was a great coach, and and his players obviously liked him, and would go to war for him. And I just think Cignetti's that same guy, that he's got that gravitas in the locker room that he can get away with going at his team publicly. A lot of people, you do that, you lose the locker room.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches, you go publicly at your team with the fragile egos, like we saw with Nico at Tennessee, Iamaleava, with the fragile egos some of these players have, and they've been puffed up by everyone in their lives to the point where their egos are at an unhealthy level at a young age, and it's all kind of toxic. And let's be real about it, that's part of college football culture too.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, it's, oh my goodness, I just lost my train of thought. Fully did it.
I think it's what Curt Cignetti said is, it's something I actually don't hate seeing. I wish I would see a little bit more out of that from PJ sometimes, after games. I'm not maybe not to that extent.
He's just never going to do it, though. PJ is he's never going to blame his players even when they deserve it, because that's just not his thing. And I respect that.
I do respect it. But there are times where I know as a frustrated fan, I want that to happen, like, because I at least want one confirmation from PJ that, like, I know he said something to that person or whatever, but I'm sure he did, like, but
I'm sure, dude.
Like, it's just me being selfish wanting to,
like I said, man, when you see him coach, he coaches hard.
Yeah.
He goes after guys hard. He's not like holding back.
Well, all the guys, I mean, every year from, when the Big Ten does the campus tour or whatever, like, they always say every single time there's nothing like a PJ Fleck go for football practice. It's very unique. So
yeah,
I'm sure. So cool. All right.
Awesome.
Well, before we move on, I want to, as always, announce that if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike here at Alibaba26. And you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com. Please follow, like, subscribe, retweet, all that stuff. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you're an audio only listener, as always, like, please just go to YouTube and subscribe. That's the thing that helps us the most of all. So yeah, if you can go to YouTube and subscribe, we really appreciate it. All the other stuff, comments, that's all stuff. That stuff's all welcome too.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, John. So for this episode, we took some inspiration from another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the Athlon College Football Podcast with Steven Lasson and Braden Gall. And they had this idea, which is a good off-season premise, for each they do it for each conference because they're a national podcast. Yeah. But the idea is you want to see all the best games. You want to see the best games in your conference. So the rule, so we've adapted it to our own, we're tweaking the rules slightly, but basically we're saying you want to go to the games that are awesome and you can only go to the same stadium twice at most. Mm-hmm. So there's 14 weeks in the season. It's hard to avoid going somewhere twice just because sometimes when you're trying to get as many teams in as you can, that just becomes hard to do. So yeah, you can go places twice, but not more than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we did this exercise last year, right?
We did that. It was before we were on YouTube, though.
Yes. So this is the first time we've done it on YouTube on both platforms. So yeah, this is great. It's exciting. I think it's always an interesting exercise because, to me, it breaks down like what my personal expectations are going to be for so many of these teams, and I can also kind of foresee where I'm going to be each week. Obviously with what my priorities are going to be. Now, to let the audience know, which they may already know, is obviously both of us watch every single Big Ten game every week. Like, there's not a game you and I miss. So just so people know, this isn't, if we don't get your team or a game on here like that, like, it doesn't mean we're not going to watch you or you're not important. This just happens to be week to week that we find that we're, if we could be at each of these are the most important ones to us. So
yep.
Don't want anybody to feel left out. That's all.
But I did get all 18 in, so I'm just going to humble brag there.
He did. You did. And I don't think I did. But
that's okay.
Please don't take offense.
Yeah. No worries. We will have a wide range of games. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's fast forward to a hot time of year in the dog days of summer when college football is upon us once again. Week 1, Labor Day weekend, with games ranging from Thursday, August 28th through Saturday, August 30th, this fall 2025. So week 1, man, a lot of good stuff. Mm-hmm. I thought about Texas at Ohio State in a game that features two teams that both play each other in last year's playoff and will both be favorites to make this year's playoff. So many storylines with this game. Yes. New players on both sides of the ball for both teams, especially on D for Ohio State. Arch Manning against the winner of the burgeoning Julian Sayin Lincoln Keenholz QB battle in Columbus. There's a good chance that Arch Manning and the winner of the Ohio State QB battle will both be Heisman Trophy contenders this year, because that's just kind of how it's going to go, probably. So that's a fun game. But there's some other fun games this week as well. And every other podcast would pick Texas at Ohio State. So I'm not going to. I'm going to pick something different. I thought about Utah at UCLA in an old Pac-12 come Big 10, Big 12 matchup. That's an interesting game. Deshaun Foster wants to show improvement from year 1 to year 2 at UCLA. Utah had a disappointing year last season, and due to injuries largely, so they will expect to come back and bounce back in a big way. But ultimately, I didn't pick this game either. Don't overlook Miami, Ohio at Wisconsin. That's an upset alert waiting to happen. Chuck Martin is arguably the best coach in the MAC. His Red Hawks are perennial MAC contender. Watch out for this one on the calendar early. Well, Wisconsin is getting their new QB used to his new teammates. And then, to be fair, Minnesota has a good Buffalo team coming to town as well. So these are underrated challenges. But I'm not picking any of those games, John. I'm going to the strangest game on the week 1 schedule. The Northwestern Wildcats are heading south to New Orleans to take on the Tulane Green Wave.
Love it.
Tulane is one of the best programs in the American Conference. They're known for having power conference level skill players. They beat USC, a decent USC team, a couple years ago in a big bowl game. I forget which one. Yeah. This seems like a game Northwestern's AD should have never agreed to. Why isn't this a home game at Evanston on campus? Why did Northwestern, who's only 1-3 against Tulane lifetime, why did they agree to a home and home with Tulane? Because this is a home and home. The first game was in 2020, and now this is the give back game. And I just don't understand that. I think that's a huge mistake by the athletic director. Let's call it what it is. And he is setting up David Braun for failure. And David Braun might find himself nearer to the hot seat because of this era. This needed to be a home game, because I'm not convinced Northwestern has the skill players to have the advantage in this game. They need Southern Methodist transfer Preston Stone to regain his 2023 form and immediately look good in a new offense. I'm worried for Northwestern. I think this will be an epic game, though. Tulane took K-State to the wire last year, and that was in Manhattan, Kansas, not New Orleans. They needed a fluky fumble return to win that game. The Wildcats did. So this is a huge game that I think will do a lot to determine the direction of David Braun's tenure in Evanston. I think he absolutely, this is year 3. He needs to win this game. I can't even imagine how bad the vibes are going to be if he loses this game.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I agree. I think this is a must-win for Braun. It's, going from Big Ten Coach of the Year a couple of years ago to what happened last year. But, to be fair, we all know how difficult it is to coach at Northwestern. Pat Fitzgerald had a lot of success, but it was the maximum. It was feast or famine. It was 1 year he was winning 8-9 games, and then the next year, 3, 4, whatever. And that's just how it goes in Northwestern. So, maybe this will be a little bit of a bounce back here. We'll see. Obviously, Preston Stone needs to show that he can be that guy. They did not have that. They didn't have any guy last year, so that was very tough. But I think it's possible, but I agree, man. This is a must-win for Northwestern, and it's very possible as well that Tulane could come out and just, blow the Wildcats out of the water.
Yeah.
So,
what do you have for week 1?
Week 1, well, you mentioned it. And
I mentioned a lot of games.
You did. Well, you mentioned this one. And I picked Wisconsin versus Miami of Ohio.
Ooh.
For the reasons you said, but also because this is very, very, very much a prove-it year for Luke Fickell. There are obviously a lot of games on that schedule that Luke Fickell will have to win or find ways to look competitive in a loss to save his job. And there's also new coordinators that are coming onto the scene, and this is going to be a bigger test than what people are aware of.
One new coordinator, right?
One new Tressel's still there.
Tressel's still there, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah. But obviously, Tressel has a lot to prove this year as well after what we saw from the defense last year.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So this is for me. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's a big test right off the bat. Obviously, as a fan of a rival team, I'm very intrigued to see the trajectory of Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers of what's going on this year. And this is going to say a lot. Now, I understand that sometimes they can get into their stride a few weeks in, but if they lose this game in week 1 against Miami of Ohio, Luke Fickell's immediately on the hot seat.
Can you imagine the vibes?
It's going to be.
Can you imagine the vibes? Like with their schedule as hard as it is.
Yeah.
As hard as their schedule is. And dude, Chuck Martin is a great coach, and he's always got a great quarterback.
Yep.
And I know that the younger Gabbert finally graduated, but he's got another undersized, overperforming quarterback stashed somewhere. He always does. So yeah, dude, that's a big one. It's a big one for Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, and obviously Billy Edwards Jr. I think is an upgrade from Braden Locke, but he's not a freaking superstar. And again, now that Hunter Woller's gone, like who's taking over this position in that secondary and who's going to be a playmaker period on defense? We don't know yet.
Yeah.
So true. If Miami of Ohio does produce another quarterback who is legit, Wisconsin could be in deep trouble here. So we'll see. Obviously I assume Wisconsin probably.
I think Wisconsin wins.
Yeah.
But it could be one of those games that's too close for comfort.
Well, last year, look at what happened with South Dakota and what was the other team that was really close?
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan, yeah. So it was uncomfortable.
It was.
But that was also that also showed you what was in store for that year, So
yeah,
I agree. I think they'll probably win, but if Luke Fickell wants to quiet down the doubters, he better blow them out and make it look convincing.
Yeah, no, make it look good for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. All right, should we move on to week 2?
Yep.
All right, this is week 2, and these games will be played on Saturday, September 6th. So I thought about Boston College at Sparty. This is the game I think Jonathan Smith really needs to win in year 2. And he's going to have his hands full with a Bill O'Brien coached offense coming into town. I thought about Miami, Ohio at Rutgers, man, because like we said, the Red Hawks are always dangerous. I thought about going to Purdue because it's one of the only games they'll be favored in, and I wanted to give them a win.
Yeah.
I thought about some other games too. Iowa State and the Cyhawks, always a great game. UCLA at UNLV is another entrant in the why is UCLA playing a road game at a good Mountain West school? That seems like a mistake for your rebuilding program.
Yep.
But I digress. Man, dude, some of these ADs, it's like they hate their football coaches. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's like they have contempt for them. So they're like, it's like they did zero research on these schools before they were like, oh yeah, this will be an easy win.
Yep.
Okie State at Oregon's fun. Illinois at Duke features a couple teams that were very good last year and should be good this year. But I'm sticking with my theme, at least for this week. I went to a game for a couple coaches who will be receiving hot seat speculation if they lose. I'm doing this. I'm going to Michigan at Oklahoma. Because Brett Venables is firmly on the hot seat entering year 3 in Norman. He's underachieved 2 years running, and while the defense has been good, the offense has not kept up its part of the bargain at all. They brought in a transfer QB in Wazoo's John Mateer, and they even brought his offensive coordinator with him. to try to make sure that he succeeds and puts up big numbers for them right away. So Venables needs this game. Similarly, man, Michigan's head coach Sharon Moore is facing scrutiny after a shaky 8-5 campaign in year one. People expect a lot better than 7-5 at Michigan. So entering year two, he really needs to beat Oklahoma, prove he has the right QB in place, whether that's Bryce Underwood or Mikey Keene. And Moore needs to announce that Michigan is in fact back. So I think, man, I know it's only year two for Sharon Moore, but if he loses this game and they don't look very good offensively doing it, I'm not saying Sharon Moore is going to be on the hot seat, but his seat's going to be warming up. And Venables can't afford to lose this game.
No,
not with an SEC schedule staring him like in the face. He cannot afford to lose this game.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I was also very close to picking Michigan and Oklahoma, but I went with a coaching matchup that I really want to see. For me, that's Michigan State and Boston College.
Nice.
I want to see Jonathan Smith, who is a notorious rebuilder of programs. We saw what he did at Oregon State and found a lot of success there. And I think he has a lot more resources at Michigan State. And I think it's just going to take a little time. So I'm really interested in seeing if he can raise the level at Michigan State in the play and see if he can bring Aiden Childs into what I believe he can be. I am still a believer in Aiden Childs being a possible future superstar, and it could be this year. Now, Boston College, obviously I want to see Bill O'Brien and how well he's bringing along that program, which obviously is much more difficult to coach there than it is at Michigan State. But it's just interesting to see two really good coaches in year two and kind of see where they brought both of their programs. Now, I expect Sparty to win this one, but I don't think it'll be easy. I think Bill O'Brien is a great coach, and I'm sure he'll be ready for it. But it'll just be an interesting coaching matchup.
Jonathan Smith had better win that game.
Yes.
Like he'd better win. Like I think he will, but he'd better win that. Yeah. All right. Very good. Good game. All right. Should we move on to week 3?
Yes.
Week 3, Saturday, September 13th. Out of conference play features a lot of good matchups as always. Minnesota at Cal is fun. Wisconsin at Alabama could be very telling for both teams. Oregon Northwestern is a conference game. But I'm going to another early conference game in USC at Purdue. I don't expect this to be particularly competitive, but we'll see if Barry Odom's transfer-heavy roster is ready to compete or not. And maybe we'll see if Trojan QB Jaden Mayava has improved at all or whether he's still an interception waiting to happen. So that's why I'm interested in this game. I think this could tell us a lot about where each of these teams is at.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I went with Northwestern and Oregon.
Okay.
Now, yes, this is going to be more than likely a complete and utter blowout by the end of the second quarter. Probably earlier than that. Let's be honest. But I really want to enjoy that makeshift stadium right by the lake. I want to feel the breeze. It's still early in the season. Maybe it's not too cold yet. So, I get a nice view. When I'm watching. When I look past the scoreboard. Just continuing to go up and up and up for the Ducks. And just get a nice day outside, nice afternoon. I think it'll just be nice. So that's what
I sounds like a good day.
For the stadium. Sure. Yeah, that's why I want to go.
Absolutely. No, the temporary stadium, I think that's a great call. All right, moving on to week 4?
Yes.
Week 4, September 20th. There were some really good options this week. Oregon State in a little game I like to still call the Civil War. Classic in-state rivalry game. I don't care if they don't call it. I know you're not supposed to call it that anymore, but I think it's fine. And I'm just not. I don't
Agreed.
think. Yeah. So that's all I'll say about that. Same with the Apple Cup in Washington and Wazoo. But for this game, John, I'm sticking with a theme. And my theme so far has been coaches who could coach themselves onto the hot seat. And that game is Maryland at Wisconsin in Camp Randall Stadium. Mike Locksley just went 4-8. He's never had a winning record in Big Ten conference play, even with Taulia Tagovailoa. He's recruiting well, but if he can't show some improvements this year, he might run out of luck. This is his conference opener, and I think it's a must-win for him, in this one. And then Luke Fickell, man, he's not anywhere near as close to the hot seat as Mike Locksley, so I'm not going to pretend like he is. But he's gone 7-6 and 5-7 in 2 years in Madison. And that is not what the AD or the fans imagined when Fickell was hired. I'm sure it's not what Fickell imagined himself.
Yeah.
So if Wisconsin drops an early conference game to Maryland, given how difficult their schedule is, that could be a bad harbinger of things to come as the season goes on. That could be the kind of thing where you eventually end up in lost season territory and the team just quits on you at a certain point. Because with how tough their schedule is, they're going to be favored in maybe in 4 or 5 games, probably 5 at best. They can't drop Maryland. That's a game they're going to be favored in. They can't drop Maryland at home. They cannot. So it's high stakes, man. I think Locksley's desperate too. So his teams tend to be better earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So Locksley, he'll have some stuff dialed up. He'll have some offensive pyrotechnics ready, especially in that first quarter is when Locksley tends to do a lot of his damage, in the first quarter, first half.
Well, and it's the Billy Edwards Jr. revenge game. So,
it's the Billy Edwards Jr. And dude, that, Billy Edwards has it circled, but the guys who really have it circled are all his old teammates at Maryland.
Yes, exactly.
And man, if you believe the rumors, he became kind of a locker room issue last year and had a little bit of a me first attitude. At least that's how a lot of people were interpreting those comments that Mike Locksley made a few weeks back.
Okay. Wow.
So there's no love lost here, I don't think, in this game at all.
No.
And man, I'm this one is appointment viewing for me. Like, I'm setting this up. This is going to be a game that I have to see from start to finish, because it's the kind of game where I don't even just need to know how it goes at the end. I need to see the coaches interact after and see if they say anything, or if it's just the obligatory quick handshake and that's it. Like, this is going to be a game where I'm going to watch the press conference of the losing coach for sure and see how defeated he seems.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I love it.
I'm excited about it.
Okay. That's a good one. Well, I decided to go week 4, Nebraska versus Michigan.
Ooh, okay.
This, we're seeing Nebraska finally trend up after last year. And they won their bowl game. They got to a bowl game and then won their bowl game. And we're seeing Michigan struggle. But where we're not necessarily seeing Michigan struggle as much anyways is defensively. Or on the defensive side of the ball, I think that what I want to see here is how well Dylan Raiola can do against a Michigan defense.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
And it's, Nebraska has they opened the season against Cincinnati, and I know that there's a lot of talk of whether or not Cincinnati is going to give them a test or not. I'm not really convinced they are going to be much of a test. I feel like Nebraska is going to handle that pretty well.
It's a neutral site game. Do you see that?
I do, yeah, which is silly.
And it's in Kansas City, which is going to favor Nebraska. They're going to have more fans there. They just are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, way more.
I don't think Cincinnati's, not to say it might not end up being a decent game because it's right early in the season, but I'm not giving it any weight that I think a lot of other people are.
No.
So Nebraska really isn't being tested at all until, in my opinion, or at least not much, until Michigan.
Right.
So this is what I want to see. I want to see how much better Dylan Raiola is. I want to see how much better Nebraska's offense altogether has gotten, and whether or not they've been able to find some receivers that can actually produce. And I got to see how this defensive line can stand up to what is going to be a Michigan run game that is going to be pretty solid, at least. Bare minimum.
Yeah. Probably great. Michigan's probably going to have a great running game. They always do. Even when they weren't very good last year, they had a great running game.
Exactly. So I think for me, it's just testing to see where Matt Rule, because it's, again, we've been hearing it for 3 years now. It's not year 1, it's not year 2, it's year 3 where Matt Rule all of a sudden wins
takes off
10, 11, 9, 10, 11 games, whatever, and so this is it. And if they somehow find a way to get past Michigan, I might be buying into the hype.
Oh, dude, absolutely.
So
we're gonna start wearing corn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. I'm gonna be wearing the corn head thing.
Cornhead.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be. You know what? I'll be drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'll be hyping them up every single week. You know me.
Yeah, I know you. Oh, right on. All right, should we move on?
Yes.
All right, week 5, September 27th. So Rutgers at Minnesota is a revenge game of sorts for the Gophers after an embarrassing loss against Rutgers last year. But the Gophers have a bye before this game. So I expect Minnesota to be ready and to kind of roll here. PJ Fleck is historically very good off of bye weeks.
Yeah.
A lot of people would pick Oregon at Penn State here. That's a really interesting game with Big Ten and national title implications. But I'm not going there. I'm picking Indiana at Iowa. These two teams have very different styles. Both should be very good this year. Both have impressive transfer QBs coming in. Both have a lot of returning production. The winner of this game could be an early dark horse Big Ten title contender and could be a fringe playoff contender. Not even fringe. Could be a straight up playoff contender.
Yeah.
So a lot of dreams have come to die in Kinnick Stadium over the years, John.
Yes, but I know.
But if anybody can win in his first trip there, it's Curt Cignetti, the guy who has seen it all over the years at all levels of college football.
That's a great pick. I can't wait to watch that game. I agree. I think stylistically it's going to be very interesting. I think the head coaches are fascinating. I can't wait for the press conferences for both those games.
Remember, Kirk Ferentz makes kind of a specialty at shutting down RPOs.
Yeah.
And Indiana depends very heavily on RPOs.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something to track. Because if Indiana gets into that game and the RPO stuff's not working, where do they pivot?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, good point. All right. Well, I picked Illinois versus USC.
Yeah.
The reason I picked Illinois versus USC is now we all talk about, and everyone obviously consistently and rightfully so to a point, talks about how Lincoln Riley is the quarterback whisperer, and he, produces all of these highly talented, Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, going on to the NFL, all that kind of stuff, which he does and has.
Yeah.
And he deserves that credit. But now we're talking about another quarterback that could possibly vie for the position of the best quarterback in the Big Ten. I'm not saying he will be, but there's potential. And we're talking about Brett Bielema, who now has had enough time and established himself well enough in Illinois and his recruiting, and now put in his kind of Big Ten football, which we knew since he came back into the Big Ten that he was eventually going to be a problem. And lo and behold, he is a major problem for him.
He's a problem. He's a problem.
Yeah. And everyone thought because he was at Illinois that somehow he wasn't going to be able to do what he did at Wisconsin. Well, guess what?
Guess what? It's a basketball school. He's still winning.
Yeah. So now when USC came into the conference last year, prior to the season, there was a lot of fans talking about the lowly Big Ten West, like Minnesota and Illinois and the Iowas and all, how we're
Excuse me
just,
while I pull my eyes from where they've rolled into the back of my head.
yeah. And USC was going to roll all those teams and we would never stand a chance. Well,
Yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah, we saw how that went.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be another time where, USC is going to get humbled and that fan base is going to get humbled. And Jaden Mayava is probably going to be terrified the entire time he's there. And I just think this Illinois team is primed to make a college football playoff run. I think Brett Bielema is not afraid of anyone. And he is going to intimidate Lincoln Riley. And I can see Lincoln Riley like peeing his pants and running on back home to LA. So, and I'm not even trying to like, it's not even meant to be like that. I have like this, I'm not obviously a huge fan of some USC fans out there who have been the way they've been, but like, it's like, I want them to understand that the floor of the Big Ten is so much higher than what I think a lot of them still believe it is. I think that, and I think
no, they just think they had a bad year. They don't realize they're just in a better conference.
They are, and I don't have any doubts that USC has the ability to get back to being a college football playoff contender. Absolutely,
yes, of course they do.
Yes, and it could happen this year for all we know. 100%
proud, long-standing, and they they're in a heavy region that has a lot of talent. Yeah, there's no reason USC can't bounce back for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will happen at some point. But I want to just establish that like this is what you're dealing with now. Illinois is not Ohio State. No, Illinois is not Michigan or Penn State or whatever. Illinois is a basketball school still, but now you have coaches like Brett Bielema and PJ Fleck and Kirk Ferentz and all that who are really good coaches who develop talent on a level that you have not been consistently seeing when you were playing in the Pac-12. So I just think Illinois is going to win this one. I think USC again probably will come into this and watch the national media favor them for whatever reason because they're a helmet school. But I can see Illinois taking this one. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely pick Illinois to beat USC. Like, yeah, that doesn't. I think by like a couple scores.
Yeah. Agreed.
And like that's no shot at USC. I think Illinois is just that good.
Yeah. This year, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have week 6, Saturday, October 4th. A lot of teams on bye again this week. The games aren't all that impressive. Northwestern is playing an out-of-conference game in week 6 for some reason against UL Monroe. So there's that. Sparty goes to Lincoln, and Illinois visits Purdue for a rematch of the worst game Illinois played last year, a multiple overtime win over otherwise hapless Purdue. That was as bad as Illinois looked all year, in my opinion, in that win over Purdue. Wisconsin at Michigan is sneaky as well, but I decided to go to Penn State at UCLA. Deshaun Foster needs to show improvement in year 2. So can he play with the big boys in the conference yet? Well, Penn State is a bona fide college football championship contender this year. They made it to the semifinal last year. They bring back the bulk of that team this year. So, can UCLA make it a game at home? We'll see.
I like that. Well, I went this week with 2 teams that are traditionally, and apparently one team that is going back to being a smash mouth, ground and pound football team. Michigan versus Wisconsin.
Ooh, okay, I like that. I thought about that one.
Yeah, this to me is you're watching the same styles go against each other. Now, obviously, Michigan has a talent advantage generally, but you have a desperate head coach who needs to win and needs a signature win, and that would be Michigan.
Yeah,
we have seen Sharon Moore struggle last year. Yes, he has more talent on the field, but will he shoot himself in the foot again and somehow slip up against a desperate Wisconsin team? So it's just
Oregon. To be fair, Wisconsin almost got Oregon last year.
They did.
And they won the Big Ten.
Exactly. So this to me is an interesting matchup. Michigan's got a lot to prove, but not as much as Wisconsin. So I think this is dangerous for Michigan. Wisconsin at this point, I assume at least has won, could have won 3 games and might be, lost with their only loss to Alabama. They might be feeling really good about themselves. They have a bye week before this game. So, you would assume they'd be healthy and feeling good having 3 wins. But, we'll see. Can Michigan put a stop to that? And then unfortunately, Wisconsin has the rest of their schedule to face after that. So
the rest of the schedule. Yeah. Which is a bear, as we've talked about in previous episodes. All right. Next up, we have week 7, Saturday, October 11th. Indiana at Oregon would be fun. Could be high flying, could be high scoring. Iowa at Wisconsin for the Heartland Trophy is a classic matchup always. Michigan at USC. That's a traditional helmet game for sure. Ohio State, Illinois could have Big Ten title implications on both sides. But I'm going to Rutgers at Washington. I'm going sailgating at Husky Stadium in Seattle. Gonna be epic. Jed Fish has a high-flying offense led by running back Jonah Coleman and dual threat Damon Williams. Rutgers has featured shaky but at times improved QB play with Ethan Kaliakmanis, but they'll probably be decent defensively, and they'll be able to run the ball. The question for me is Saturday, October 11th, week 7 next year, is Rob Smith still calling the Rutgers defense?
Dude, we're going to be on Rob Smith watch every single week.
I am. I'm going to pay attention to Shianu's pressers. Yeah. I want to know because, is he still in charge, or has Shianu been like, okay, I can see why you get fired all the time. Let me take over.
Yeah.
So that's my big question that I'll be watching. I'll be watching the sidelines at this game. I'll be scoping it out, trying to figure out who's actually sending in the defensive calls.
Yeah.
Binoculars up.
Yeah. It still just boggles my mind that Shianu, of all people, would make that hire, man. I thought you knew better, but okay, we'll see.
But maybe it's the Nick Saban thing. Maybe he can take, lemons and turn them into lemonade.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm very interested. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's funny you picked that because that was my pick as well.
Oh, nice.
I'll just go with my second pick.
Sure.
Just to kind of change it up a little bit. My second pick was USC versus Michigan.
Nice.
You got that classic helmet school game, and I think that it's a great color matchup.
That's contrast.
Always lovely to see on the screen.
That's one where you want to see both teams wear their home unis.
Exactly. Yes. Well, and as we know, USC is actually cool with that when they play UCLA. So maybe they'd be cool with other teams doing that. In fact, I think the Big Ten should consider doing that more often with certain teams.
Way more often.
Like Minnesota, Wisconsin should be wearing their home team gear anytime they play each other.
Every time they play.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Obviously, maroon helmets, maroon.
Sparty, Michigan.
Sparty, Michigan. Another great one. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other conversation, but I agree. I think with this particular game would be amazing. But yeah, we're looking at 2 coaches who have a lot to prove. Obviously you're looking at one coach that wants to throw the ball, another one who wants to run the ball. I just think it's a good matchup, and we'll see. USC is bringing in a lot of talent this year. They're recruiting incredibly well, and they brought in some really talented transfers. We're gonna have to see if Lincoln Riley can put that together and be able to throw the ball against which will probably be another very good Michigan defense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great pick. No, I love it, and I think USC fans, that's the stick you want to be measured against, the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Penn States. Okay, well, let's see it.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see it. Lincoln Riley, you said you were this close to being 8-0 when you were 4-5 or whatever. Okay.
Were you? Okay. All right.
Were you?
I don't know what world you live in, but okay.
Were you? Yeah. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote.
But it was
but
something along those
it
lines.
was
I
something
remember
along
that.
those
Yeah,
lines,
yeah.
and you were like, "Oof!" Who used to say stuff like that? Tim Brewster.
Yes, he did. Yep.
Oh yeah, Tim Brewster loved saying stuff like that.
Ugh.
But we digress.
Yes.
We digress.
Cool.
Right on. Well, yeah, I love that. Great pick, and that's one that. And if Michigan is for real, Michigan should win that one convincingly.
Yes. Yeah.
If they are the team that people that like everyone wants us to think that they are with Bryce Underwood,
Mm-hmm.
then they should be able to just dispatch this version of USC. All right. We are on week 8, correct?
Yes.
Week 8, Saturday, October 18th. There are some absolute bangers this week, John. USC at Notre Dame, always a great matchup. And this one will likely be no different. Last year, they played a wire-to-wire thriller. Notre Dame ended up winning memorably on those 2 late pick sixes that stick out in my mind. I can see the D-back running back through the offense now. But anyway, moving on. Sparty at Indiana is intriguing. Penn State at Iowa, always worth the price of admission at Kinnick. That's a great game. But John, I'm going home for this game. I'm heading just down the street from where I live to Huntington Bank Stadium to see the battle for the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy. The best trophy game the Big Ten refuses to talk about.
Yes.
Look, the reason I got to see this game, John, is straight up, it's now or never for Matt Rule in year 3. You know, he went 5-7 his first year. He went 6-6 last year. Everybody says preach, be patient. Matt Rule will do big things in year 3. And year 3 is often when coaches break through. PJ Fleck won 11 games in year 3. You know, a lot of guys break through in year 3. But if not now, in year 2 under Dylan Raiola, I just got to wonder, is this the year that Nebraska awakens the echoes and wins big? Mm-hmm. And if it's not this year, is it going to happen under Matt Rule at all?
Yeah.
So I think this is an enormous game. And also for PJ Fleck, he mostly gives coach speak, but you can tell he's excited about this addition to the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Mm-hmm.
He's sky high on redshirt Frosh QB Drake Lindsay. The D returns a lot of production, and the offense does too. The Huskers have both done well filling holes in the portal. And I would bring up the motto that PJ Fleck is going, like the buzzword he's going with this year, but I think it would honestly make all our fans angry. No, I not our fans, sorry. I think it would make all the fans of opposing teams that don't like us angry.
Yeah.
Because it's just too optimistic for them.
Yeah, they can't handle that.
But the point is, PJ wouldn't be setting the bar up here if he didn't think he had a team.
Yeah.
So you've got these two teams that are both, programs that are mature at this point. And now it's just a matter of who's ready to play ball on a mid-October night in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. Obviously, it's been a while since Nebraska beat Minnesota.
We've 5 games in a row.
5 in a row.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, 5, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5.
Yep. I think I remember that.
Yeah, I think it's been multiple presidential administrations.
Yes, it has. And we both know that Nebraska fans desperately want to beat PJ Fleck because they have an unhealthy obsession with him.
Some of them do.
Some of them do. And
not a lot of you are out there who we love. Shout out to Matt Rule Smock, Patrick Conover, Peter Meister, our friends who are out there. We know you aren't saying that, but some of your brethren have a little bit of an unhealthy obsession with a certain bald coach.
Yes. So, and I could see, look, I could see if Nebraska is who everyone is thinking that they might be this year. I shouldn't say everyone, but many people are, with this year 3 under Matt Rule, which is very possible. Taking that next step, and Dylan Raiola having a full year within the system and maturing and seeing where he's at this year too, which you would expect him to take a step forward. We'll see how big, but at least a step forward.
So much depends on their skill players, because that's the other
Yeah.
thing. They just weren't that good last year.
Yeah.
Their running backs and wide receivers were not that good.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't all on Dylan Raiola that
No.
they couldn't get open.
Nope. No, it was not. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a really good test for Nebraska. Look, man, it's going to be a competitive game no matter what. It always is.
Oh, yeah.
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 So,
well,
not always.
Couple times it wasn't.
I'm trying to be nice. Yeah. No,
it usually is. It usually is a very closely contested match. And I would imagine that this one probably will be too. I know I'll be there screaming my head off.
Well, what people don't know, maybe some people in the Nebraska faithful don't even know, is that Nebraska, Minnesota was for years in like the early 1900s and through like the mid 1900s was played a lot. Like there was a legit rivalry going on. This is not a new rivalry, Minnesota Nebraska. It's old. It's just been reestablished very recently. Obviously,
we played them more than Iowa had, I think. Even
yeah. So it's good. It's good for both programs that it's like this. And again, Big Ten officially recognized the $5 bits of broken chair. Come on, man.
Yeah,
everyone loved it.
Cowards
want this. Come on.
And there's this charity attached to it.
Yes,
they raise money for a very worthwhile charity every year. Everybody likes the $5 bits of broken chair. Mm-hmm. It was a totally organic internet trophy that came up because of Goldie Gopher and Twitter personality Faux Pelini.
Yep.
Who I don't think is very active anymore, but used to be kind of the king of Twitter.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Of college football, Big Ten Twitter specifically.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyway, yes, great pick. Love that. So my week 8 pick here is going to be Indiana versus Michigan State.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. That's good.
Now, obviously, I have a lot of faith in Curt Cignetti. He's a fantastic coach. We saw what he did last year, throwing the ball all over the place. But I have a lot of maybe unfounded faith in Jonathan Smith and Aiden Childs for some reason. I know
he's your new Hudson Card.
He is my new Hudson Card. You're absolutely right. You're totally right. That's a great
call. He's your 2025 Hudson Card.
He is my 2025 Hudson Card.
He's the QB that you're going to live and die with no matter how it goes.
Exactly. I really do. I've got so much faith in this kid. I think he's a freak athlete, and I think he has the potential to be like insane.
Yeah, he's got a cannon.
Yeah. And when in his ability to like his improvisation on the field last year sometimes was just like wild. There was video game stuff. So he's capable of so much. We'll just see if he can find a way to control it. And I think Jonathan Smith could help him get there. So
absolutely.
We'll see it. So it's just an exciting matchup. You got two possible high-powered offenses, both with defenses that, I don't know, could be good, maybe.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm expecting just a lot of fireworks, and I think that'd be a fun game to go to.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's an awesome game. Love that pick. All right, moving on to week 9. So this is Saturday, October 25th. And, John, a lot of the times I talk about different games that I thought about. There's only one game I thought about going to this week.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Michigan at Michigan State. This is a blood rivalry. This is in-state hatred. This is the contempt of the people you have to live with, and you can't get away from them. Mm-hmm. And there's no, if I really want to, I don't have to pay attention to anybody from Wisconsin or Iowa.
Yeah.
But if you're a Michigan or a Sparty fan, either one, you can't get away from them.
Yeah.
You can't get away from their hated. And that kind of contempt is a different kind of contempt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say it's a bigger rivalry, because obviously the biggest rivalry for Michigan is Ohio State, but it is a very, very big rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly more than, Michigan would, a lot of Michigan fans would pretend like it's not a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
It's a big deal. So Jonathan Smith in year 2 versus Sharon Moore in year 2 is the other thing. So you've got two guys trying to build. Well, Sharon Moore is trying to rebuild, I guess. Well, no, Jonathan Smith is trying to rebuild. Sharon Moore is trying to keep the pieces together. But can Jonathan Smith make this a game? Does he have the depth of talent needed to go toe-to-toe for 3.5, 4 quarters with Michigan? And especially, and how do these quarterbacks look, man? Bryce Underwood and Aiden Childs, I don't know how they're going to look. They could look great. They could look terrible. They could look both in the same game. I don't know. So I think it's going to be a really exciting one.
I agree. I think that's a really cool pick. There's really more unknowns there than what at least at this time, when it comes to these two teams. And again, it's a major rivalry game. Anything can happen in that. So yeah. I think it's really exciting. I also had that pick. That was also my pick. But I guess I could give I'll give my second pick just so we can talk a little bit more. And it's one that I think you would probably agree on. And it is the battle for the Floyd of Rosedale.
Yeah.
We can't not talk about the Floyd of Rosedale. It's the best rivalry trophy in all of college football. Now, this was my second pick because I didn't want to go heavy Minnesota here, because I didn't want to be a homer, even though I will. They're definitely on my list. But Iowa, obviously, we all know Iowa and Minnesota. They hate each other. This has been.
And it's always close, man. It's always down to the wire every time with Iowa and Minnesota, it seems like.
And last year was so disheartening of a loss for Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously at that
point, they had them at half. They had the advantage at half.
They did. And it really wasn't I feel like that was Caleb Johnson's coming out right there.
Oh, it was Caleb Johnson just being like, I'm flat out better than you are.
Yeah, at everything. And he was already, you knew about him, but that game is what really set it for him for the rest.
When I saw how, man, the way he turned the corner in person was it reminded me a little bit of I'm trying to think of who was oh no, I'm losing it. Iowa back who was really good running outside zone, but not that good doing anything else. Wadley.
Yes. Was it Wadley or Watley?
I don't know.
I know who you're talking about though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Wadley.
Wadley? Yeah, I think it was. I don't know though.
Keep talking, but I'll look it up. Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just I thought that guy could get to the edge fast, but Caleb Johnson got to the edge fast like almost no one I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
On those stretch plays. I mean, it was just terrifying. And I do think that Moulton is a very good back.
Akram Wadley.
Yes. I remember now. Okay, nice.
Yes.
Look, Moulton's a really good back, but he's not Caleb Johnson.
No.
And so I do think, then it becomes a quarterback battle, and we've got Gronowski, the FCS star, who is still too hurt to, play, and how much time is he going to have to get ready with his skill players, and who's he going to throw to?
We still don't know. I don't know.
That's the thing, man, with Iowa. Who is the quarterback throwing to?
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be clear who's, kind of rising to the top there. So I think Minnesota's going to want this one really bad.
Yeah.
I think this could be one where it comes down to whether or not Drake Lindsay throws a turnover in the second half or not.
Mm-hmm.
Throws a pick in the second half or not as a freshman quarterback.
Well, and I think PJ wants this because he wants to prove that he can beat Kirk Ferentz more than once. I think before Kirk.
Dude, that would be 2 in a row in Iowa City. That'd be 2 in a row.
And before Kirk retires, he's got to get it done sooner than later.
True.
So
yeah.
So that would be my second pick. But yes, it's good game.
Nice. Oh God, great game always.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought that one up because I wasn't even going to say anything just because I didn't want to again be too homerish when there was another obvious rivalry game to come of teams that I hadn't seen yet in Sparty at least.
Yes.
All right. So, speaking of Week 10, Saturday, November 1st, we're into November, into the home stretch. This one was also easy for me. There was no debate. I'm going to Columbus to see Penn State and Ohio State battle it out in the shoe for Big Ten supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these teams will be and should be ranked in the preseason top 5. Both have legit national title aspirations. Both could easily be undefeated at this point. It's now or never for James Franklin, who will likely never have a better roster, coaching staff combination than he does now. And for Ohio State, they want to do the rarest thing and not just repeat as champions, but repeat as champions with a largely new cast of characters. Now they do return the best wide receiver core in America, led by Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and the best DB in the country in safety Caleb Downs, but it's a lot of new players at a lot of positions. So, yeah, man, the winner of this game will have the inside track to the Big Ten championship and possibly the national championship. So I think this one's going to be one for the ages.
Yeah, man. I mean, this was my pick too. I don't feel like how can you pick any other in Week 10? There's no other real game that you could pick, in my opinion. I mean, to me, Nebraska USC is intriguing. Of course, like if Matt Rule can get
there are other it's the Big Ten. There are other good games, but like there's not another game to pick. No.
Well, and I gotta see this year, Penn State has to beat one of either Oregon or Ohio State. They have to. Has to happen. Mm-hmm. There cannot be another 10-2 year. Not to say that they can't.
I think they can go 10-2 if they beat Oregon, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think they can drop a second game as long as they beat either Oregon or Ohio State.
Yes.
But it's gonna feel really empty if they don't beat Oregon or Ohio State.
Exactly. So that's why my eyes are on this, man. I gotta see what James Franklin can do if he can finally make something like that happen. So we'll see.
All right, moving on to Week 11, Saturday, November 8th. So many intriguing games this week, but I'm going back to a strange place in Kinnick Stadium for a second time, which I never thought I'd say. I'm going to Kinnick Stadium twice in a year to take in Oregon against Iowa. This is a November game, John, and weather could be a factor. It'll be really interesting to see how Oregon does if it's, say, 25 and, ugly in Iowa City. Just saying, that could make things real interesting.
Yep. I actually picked the same thing. And for those reasons that you already stated, but also I want to see this this Iowa defense do what it does and see if they can Iowa Oregon. And see Oregon maybe feel, not to say Oregon loses,
right,
but to see them get frustrated the same way the rest of us have been frustrated by these Iowa Phil Parker defenses for years and years and years. So I'm very interested to see if that were to happen. Again, I still would have to say I would pick Oregon, but it would just be fun to see how frustrated they can get and finally understand what we've all been going through for so long. So that's
absolutely,
that's why I also picked the same
love game. That. Yep. I love that rationale. All right. Week 12, 3 weeks left. Wisconsin, Indiana is a fascinating matchup. Minnesota and Oregon could be really fun. Iowa at USC will be a contrast in styles, but I'm going to Maryland at Illinois. If Illinois is the team they were last year and they're bringing back 18 starters, then they are a legit playoff contender. If they are that, then they should pound a Maryland team that might have a head coach in Mike Locksley who's on his last legs by then. If things go south early in the season for Locksley, who knows where Maryland's going to be at. So this is going to be one of those, if Illinois is as good as I think they are, come out and prove it kind of game.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Well, I went back to East Lansing, and I am choosing to see Michigan State versus Penn State.
Nice.
Now, you just mentioned Penn State possibly dropping a second game that might not be Oregon or Ohio State. This is a game I could see being that game. I could see Jonathan Smith being very prepared. Aiden Childs playing, he's my new Hudson Card, playing out of his mind, and catching James Franklin, on his heels and not as prepared as he should be. Now, this is technically a rivalry game. Is it truly treated as one? Not really, to my understanding.
No, it's not. It's not a rivalry.
No, it was manufactured.
Yeah.
But I think this I'm intrigued by it because at this late in the season, Penn State could be on a roll and looking totally dominant and fall asleep at the wheel a little bit. And I think that this could be a game that would be a trap game for them, and I could see something like that happen. I'm not saying it will, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I love that. It's the first time anyone's mentioned a trap game this year. So yeah, trap games are fun.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably do an episode on trap games at some point.
Yep.
So I'm glad you mentioned the trap game, one of the tried and true, realities of college football.
It's true.
No matter how good your team is or how they're rolling along, you get to the wrong trap game, all of a sudden it all comes apart.
Mm-hmm.
Some team had a bye, they had 2 weeks to get ready for you or something, and they just know what buttons to push, and you're coming off a couple tough games, and yeah, man, it can happen.
Well, and Sparty does have a bye right before they play Penn State. So yeah, there you go.
There you go. I love it when that happens. It's like we planned it. All right. Week 13, the penultimate weekend. Saturday, November 22nd. Illinois at Wisconsin tempted me. That could be a big game for both teams for different reasons at that point in the year. So did USC at Oregon, which is a great old Pac-12 battle, of course. But I'm going Nebraska at Penn State. If Penn State is what we think they are, then they will likely need to win this game and probably win it convincingly to stay in the Big Ten title hunt. On the flip side, this would be the kind of signature win that Matt Rule could use to sell people that he's making progress in Lincoln. So this could be the kind of game, I could see this one that Matt Rule has circled right now as like, no matter what happens in all the other games, we have to take a really good run at Penn State. Because if you win that game, then that's proof of concept that you've got things turned around in Lincoln.
Yep. No, that's a great pick. Great pick. I did go with the Helmet School game, Oregon versus USC.
Nice.
I just want to go out to Eugene again. It's a beautiful country. Love it. Another matchup of two great school colors. Well, if Oregon would just actually pick their school colors, this would be a great matchup.
Seriously.
So let's hope they do. Again, another game where like both of their home unis would be fantastic. Yeah. And plus, there's just so much hate there. They really hate each other. They loathe each other. It's new money versus old money.
Mm-hmm.
And USC can't stand them, and Oregon can't stand USC. So it's just like it's. I love it. I love the hate.
Yeah.
And it's new. It's new to me. I want to learn more about this rivalry and why they hate each other so much. Now, I think I know a lot, but I want to feel that. I want to feel the vibe. I want to feel it in Autzen Stadium and see the rage just come out from each and every person as this game progresses. Now, and also the fact is this would be a massive win for Lincoln Riley if he happens to make that happen and this would put USC back on the map. In my opinion, if he was able to pull off a win here, this would be.
That would be a signature win for him for sure.
Yeah. So
to be like, yeah, here we are.
Yep. And again, this is later in the season, and Oregon, who knows? Maybe they're not as prepared as they should be. So it'll be fun. That'd be a great game.
Absolutely, John. We've made it to the last weekend of the 2025 season. Games that will be played week 14, Friday, November 28th and Saturday, November 29th. This is as good as it gets. I'm going to read off all the amazing rivalries. Oregon versus Washington. UCLA at USC. Ohio State versus Michigan in the game A game, by the way, that could determine who plays for the Big Ten title and gets preferential seeding in the playoff. Northwestern Illinois in the Land of Lincoln game. And Indiana Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket. Also, Penn State and Rutgers play, so that's something.
Well, New Jersey and Pennsylvania are like right, they touch, so like
sure,
obviously.
Okay, it's fine. It's a game. It's a game anyway. It's a conference game. But let's be real. You knew I was heading back to Minneapolis to watch Minnesota host Wisconsin for the Battle of Paul Bunyan's axe. The Gophers have the axe. They've won it 3 out of the past 4 years. They ran Wisconsin off the field in Madison last year. Wisconsin may need to beat Minnesota if they're going to make a bowl game. That would be the second year in a row where they needed to do that. Last year, it didn't happen. It would be absolutely devastating for Luke Fickell's regime if he lost to Minnesota to miss a bowl game for the second year in a row. Can you imagine if they're that close to the postseason 2 years in a row and Minnesota denies them both times?
I mean, I don't see him surviving into next season if that were to happen. I just don't.
I mean, 7-6, 5-7, 5-7. It's like, where are we going as a program?
Yep.
As for the Gophers, they could be playing for a good bowl or maybe even a dark horse playoff spot. Who knows? But regardless, it'll be a game that helps define the trajectory of both programs, particularly that of Wisconsin in the position they're currently in, where everything is so uncertain in Madison. But also in Minnesota, where Drake Lindsay might be saying, hey, I'm putting my stamp on this rivalry for the next few years. So, hey, Badgers, come at me. I'm here.
Yep.
And that could be a whole, when those difference makers emerge, whether it's a running back or a wide receiver or a quarterback. And I don't know Drake's going to be one of those guys, but I think there's a chance by this point in the season he's one of those guys.
Yeah.
And that could be really fascinating to track too. Yeah, man. I mean, I was, let's be real. It's our podcast. I was going to go to Minnesota, Wisconsin. If it's in Minneapolis, come on.
Yeah. Well, which is exactly why I picked the same thing. So yeah. What was that? No, what was I going to do? I'm not going to, should I go to Maryland, Michigan State? Like that sounds, no, man, no, it's definitely going to be and always will be Minnesota, Wisconsin, the longest running rivalry in all of college football. So, yep, it's just too important to miss. And for all the reasons you already stated, I don't need to reiterate. I think it's going to be very intriguing and very interesting. There's a lot at stake. So it'll be great. It's the way it always is.
Awesome. And if you are still with us 83 minutes into a podcast about college football in the month of April, you are awesome, and I love you. And also, please go and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes, do that. And again, you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube and follow, subscribe, comment, like, all that stuff. And you can do that on Spotify as well, Apple Podcasts and Podcast Addict. You can also follow us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can follow Mike at Alibaba26, and you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can also email us any questions, thoughts, what have you. We live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, John, this was a fun episode. I love the Dream Road Trip. Like I do. Got to give it up to Braden Gall and Steven Lassen. It's a great concept.
Yep.
So, we're appropriating that. So, if you want to check out their Big Ten road trip, it's not as cool as ours is. We had more deep cuts than they did, but it's still fun. So if you want to check that out, you could.
Yep.
Because their podcast is aggressively fine.
It's aggressively fine. It is.
Aggressively.
Right.
That's what I'd say.
That. Perfect.
Aggressively fine. That'd be a good name for a podcast.
Honestly, yeah.
Aggressively fine. Ooh, that's got me thinking. I've got ideas percolating all over the place. All right. Well, thanks so much for rocking with us this week. We are very excited to continue to bring you content. We are going to work up, now that I have a little more time in my schedule, we're going to work up to doing a live episode too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So be on the lookout for that and be excited, or ready to join us for that. We would welcome you all to do so.
Yeah, we also have some guests coming up this summer, late spring, early summer. So not in the too distant future here. We will have some interesting guests and talking about team previews and all that kind of stuff. So things to look forward to, of course.
Yeah, we're gonna do a team preview on all 18 Big Ten teams because this summer to get you ready for the season. That'll be our preview for the season. And how we get you, that'll be the main way we get you ready for the season. And we've got, so far, we don't have all the guests lined up for all the teams, but we have a lot of guests lined up who are really awesome. Yep. So we're super excited. I'd say a couple of them are a little bit of a coup to get them for our little podcast. So it'll be really exciting. And if there's anyone you think that we should get as an expert, because we need an expert for all 18 Big Ten teams. So if you have someone that you think is awesome, please let us know and we will check them out for sure.
Yep.
Let us know their info and we'll look them up and see if maybe they want to come on the show.
That'd be great.
All right, John, should we get out of here?
Let's do it.
Well, thanks everyone so much. And as always, have an awesome weekend. See you in the next one.